The Denver Broncos just pulled off one of the biggest steals of the 2025 NFL Draft, and don't let the draft graders or broken mock drafts fool you. Sean Payton is thrilled with how everything played out, and honestly, he should be. In this video, we're diving into the Broncos' impressive haul from rounds 2, 3, and 4. Sure, there's been a lot of buzz around big names like Zayden, Jade, and RJ, but there were a few under-the-radar picks that could turn out to be absolute gems. And it's not just hype. Several respected NFL analysts are already calling Denver's draft class one of the best in the league. Let's start with the strategy. The Broncos weren't swinging for the fences, and they didn't need to. This roster is already well constructed. The goal was to add depth, find key contributors, and fill specific needs. One of those needs? A running back, and they got one. No questions asked. They also picked up a starting caliber cornerback, someone who adds serious strength to a secondary that's already difficult to throw against. But the real magic happened deeper in the draft. Take 4th round pick Key Robinson, a 6'4" edge rusher out of Alabama. You love to see that SEC pedigree, especially when he spent his college career going up against top-tier offensive linemen, and they couldn't stop him. Even better, Robinson was voted best teammate by his peers. Not just a team captain, but the kind of guy who brings energy, accountability, and leadership into the locker room. That fits perfectly with the culture Sean Payton is building. Young, driven, and self-led. Some analysts are already calling Robinson the steal of the draft. One even compared the pick to when Denver snagged Nick Bonitto, who, by the way, led the league in sacks last year. That's the level of impact we're talking about. Dan Orlovsky said it best. This Broncos secondary is ridiculous. And with Robinson joining an already deep edge group, Denver just turned a strength into a potential nightmare for opposing offenses. This front office continues to make smart moves, including cashing in on Baron Browning while his value was high, allowing them to reload without breaking the bank. Let's talk about what Denver has built on the edge. Between Jonathan Cooper, Nick Bonitto, Jonah Ellis, who quietly notched 5 sacks last season, and DeAndre Tillman, the Broncos were already deep. Now add Key Robinson to that mix, and suddenly this outside pass rush looks like a true platoon again. Robinson isn't just another depth piece either. He's a special teams force and a legit disruptor, even in limited college action. And remember, he was doing this in the SEC, not some lower tier conference. His explosiveness off the edge against top offensive lines is what makes him such a high upside pick. He's already turning heads online, with some calling him the biggest sleeper of the draft. The reason he likely slid to Denver? A late season elbow injury that limited him to just 7 games at Alabama. If he had stayed healthy, scouts believe he could have been a top 100 pick, and it's easy to see why. Robinson played behind first-rounders like Dallas Turner and Will Anderson, 2 elite talents that NFL teams moved up to get. Learning from that kind of competition sharpened his game. His biggest knock right now? He still needs to develop more flexibility and anticipation in his pass rush. The traits that made someone like Von Miller a nightmare for offenses. But with time and coaching, he has the tools to get there. And with key contracts looming, Bonitto, Jonathan Franklin Myers, and Zach Allen all due for new deals. Having someone like Robinson ready to step up gives Denver flexibility. This is how you build sustainable success. Before the draft, Sean Payton and GM George Paton mentioned that they had their eyes on 2 defensive linemen. One they believed was ready to contribute immediately, and another they saw as a future All-Pro. That brings us to pick number 101, Cevon Jones. The Broncos traded up to get him, and it's easy to see why. Jones is a physical monster with top-tier run-stopping ability. And yes, he's another SEC product, this time from LSU. In fact, this marks the first time Sean Payton has ever drafted a player from LSU, and he couldn't have picked a more NFL-ready talent. Out of over 2,200 defensive linemen tested through the RAS Relative Athletic Score System, Jones ranked in the top 1% in terms of physical measurables. We're talking size, strength, explosiveness, the whole package. This kind of draft class doesn't just plug holes, it builds long-term dominance. And Denver might have just landed 2 future stars without spending a first-round pick to do it. Let's talk about Cevon Jones again for a second. At 6 feet 5 inches, 280 pounds, this guy brings serious power to the defensive line. Watching his tape, his motor and relentless energy are reminiscent of Zach Allen, and that's likely exactly what Sean Payton envisions. Denver knows they can't pay every standout defender long term, but when you've got depth like this, you can afford to let some guys walk and still stay elite, and maybe even pick up compensatory picks in the process. And let's be real, this defense was already top 3 in the league last year. Now they've added Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga, plus arguably the best cornerback in the draft. Then they stack more depth on the defensive line with players like Jones and Malcolm Roach. Good luck running the ball against this front. Teams like the Raiders, who already struggle to find receiver separation, are going to get locked up in man coverage, while this front seven clogs every running lane. It's a nightmare for opposing offenses. Now let's shift to a pick that sparked a lot of debate. Wide receiver Pat Bryant. Some draft analysts called it a reach, saying he was a projected 6th rounder and the Broncos grabbed him too early. But here's the thing. People said the same about Quinn Miners a few years ago. At the time, other front offices reportedly laughed when Denver took him, especially since his viral training footage showed him blocking trees in Wisconsin. Now, Miners is one of the best guards in the NFL, possibly an All-Pro, so don't sleep on Bryant just because his 40-yard dash wasn't impressive. Sean Payton compared him to Michael Thomas. Yes, that Michael Thomas. And ran to the podium to make the pick. That says a lot. Look at the production. Bryant led Illinois in touchdowns despite playing with a revolving door at quarterback. Most people couldn't even name who was throwing him the ball, and yet he still stood out. He's a captain. He's a high-effort guy. His combine numbers might not pop, but on the field, he creates separation, makes tough sideline catches, and shows advanced route running. And as pointed out by NFL analyst Sayer Bettinger, Bryant's relative athletic score is nearly identical to Amon-Ra St. Brown, a guy nobody dares to call slow once the pads are on. Bryant might not have been on every mock draft radar, but Payton has a track record of unearthing receivers who others overlook. And this could be the next one. Let's stay on Pat Bryant for a moment. He held his own against some of the best defenses in college football. We're talking Ohio State, Michigan, and Indiana, all of which featured NFL caliber talent. Michigan won the national championship, and Bryant was still able to create separation and make plays. That's no small feat. A lot of fans are already labeling him the replacement for Lil Jordan Humphrey, who played over 50% of the Broncos' offensive snaps last season, but is no longer with the team. Humphrey had a drop rate of 6.8%. Meanwhile, Bryant had just 2 drops across his entire college career at Illinois. That kind of consistency and reliability is exactly what Denver needs. Sean Payton clearly sees something special in him. He even compared Bryant to Michael Thomas, one of his former stars in New Orleans. That alone should get Broncos fans excited. On top of that, Bryant isn't just a receiver, he's a blocker. One of his personal mottos is no block, no rock, meaning he knows he won't get targets unless he's willing to put in the dirty work. That's a big deal in Payton's offense. He's also got a complete route tree. Unlike some receivers who come into the league only running go routes, Bryant can execute a variety of patterns with sharp cuts and solid timing. He's not just a deep threat, he's a well-rounded weapon for Bo Nix in this offense. And here's another cool angle. Jim Leonhard, former NFL safety and one of the smartest defensive minds in college football, was on Illinois' staff and had a direct hand in evaluating players like Bryant. Sean Payton clearly leans into those connections, and it's paying off. Just like Vance Joseph's cousin coaching the new rookie cornerback, Payton continues to find talent through trusted football pipelines. Now, this is where things get even more interesting. The draft may be over, but Sean Payton isn't done. This is the part where he starts working the phones. There are always gems among the undrafted free agents, and Payton has a track record of finding them. Last year, he personally called Lavelle Bailey and convinced him to sign with Denver, even though 10 other teams wanted him. That kind of recruiting matters. This week could be big, especially when it comes to adding more running back depth. So Broncos country, stay locked in. There's more talent coming. Sean Payton is far from finished, and this roster is only getting stronger.